There's no denying Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora and Star Wars Outlaws have underperformed commercially. Whether these titles underwhelm you or not, the developers' open-world games have unfortunately become poster children for cookie-cutter experiences, a paint-by-numbers trawl through worlds, lusciously designed but hampered by middling stories and box-checking grind. In many ways, the latest entry in the Assassin's Creed series, Shadows, is make or break for the developer given the spate of redundancies affecting the industry since the pandemic. This feature isn't about the developer's current state, of course, but it's worth beginning with this context because arguably the developer's downturn started in 2015 with Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and then things started to get worse after Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey. Arriving just 12 months after the much-maligned, although later redeemed, Assassin's Creed Unity, Syndicate whisked players back to Victorian-era London, a setting which holds up as one of the series' most visceral, but with gameplay which didn't reinvent the wheel over its predecessor. Still, Syndicate possessed enough distinction to sell well, but much like Frontiers of Pandora and Outlaws, its commercial performance was lacking. The developer put this down to series fatigue. Too many Assassin's Creed games in too short of a time. But even players who weren't burned out swerved this one given Unity's insipidness. Looking back a decade, Assassin's Creed Syndicate can be reframed as an overlooked entry in the series, a game downgraded by reputation rather than reality. The aforesaid portrayal of London was sublime, but the experience's stealth was stellar, its main character decent enough at getting you to care for them, its switched-up period-correct weaponry excellent. In short, it was a blast to play. Because of its shortcomings, of which there are numerous, Assassin's Creed Syndicate kickstarted the developer's desire to reboot the series, but blaming Syndicate for the series' break, however, is unjust. Let's take a deeper look at 1868 London, a mix of heavy industry, smog-filled skylines, and muddy areas underpinning globally recognized landmarks. The Tower of London, Palace of Westminster, the Houses of Parliament, Big Ben, St. Paul's Cathedral. These architectural jewels in the British Empire's crown are wonderfully recreated here. This place feels like London. And bustling are these streets too, although notably they aren't as packed with pedestrians as Unity's Paris, which likely was a decision made by the developer to minimize performance issues which plagued Syndicate's predecessor, and a good decision turned out to be for the gameplay purposes as well. The city's wide streets provide breathing room for the game's freshest traversal gimmick, the very Batman-esque grappling hook. See, while London is indeed an excellent setting for Assassin's Creed, the design of its chimney-heavy rooftops doesn't exactly foster freewheeling parkour. The grappling hook, with associated zipline, proved essential in zapping between buildings, scooting above the chasm of wide London streets, maintaining free running so integral for the series in the finest way possible. The city plays playground to Syndicate's brother-sister duo, twins Jacob and Evie Fry, the former being a brute force pragmatist hell-bent on reclaiming London's boroughs from Templar oppression, while the latter is more nuanced, a true assassin of the shadows, more calculated approach. Both characters contrast very well in their approaches, even though the game doesn't go far enough to distinguish each in terms of skills and attributes. Jacob's combat-centric combos and Evie's stealth-oriented invisibility cloak are really the only defining features for a pair which function largely the same. Still, their opposing worldviews make for an interesting narrative, a structure in which you spend more of your time chasing Jacob's goals of unifying his city, amassing a gang to take down small-time Templars who are operating with impunity at street level. To be clear, the game is better for aligning more closely to Jacob. At times it feels as though Evie was an afterthought shoehorned in during mid-development. Clawing back fragments of the city as per Jacob's ideal, while a tried and tested formula for a video game activity, seldom feels tedious or like busy work due to both protagonists, their sibling rivalry, and the meaningfulness behind reclaiming London's streets. The developer opted to forego swordplay in favor of street-brawling combat in Syndicate, But alas, while they addressed Unity's numerous pitfalls during combat, unfortunately this felt like a step down. There is still fun to be had, what with the aforementioned period-correct weaponry, brass knuckles, compact revolvers, cane swords, and the Nepalese imported kukri blades providing a unique spin to melee combat. There was also more variety in combat animations, but the act of 13 comboing gangsters became a repetitive, button-mashing affair. Morphing enemies into punching bags wasn't the most fulfilling way to boost the challenge of Assassin's Creed's combat, a facet which had at times endured criticism for being too easy. Fact is, Assassin's Creed Syndicate's hand-to-hand focused combat would have been better presented were there more weight behind every right hook. Still, eschewing blocking and parrying for dodging, the ability to line multiple opponents up to mix in multi-kill combos and execution animations was an enjoyable process, providing your twin assassins were suitably leveled up. Plus, Syndicate excelled in stealth. Bread and butter for a series of action stealth games for sure, but Jacob and Evie's traipses through Victorian London's criminal underworld was made all the more enjoyable by arguably the best stealth mechanics that had appeared in an Assassin's Creed game to that point. Perhaps not including Black Flag though. What made stealth a blast here was the range of viable options for remaining undetected. Crouching in cover before utilizing distracting whistles or tossing knives at unsuspecting guards' faces, or killing them from cover altogether. Incapacitating voltaic bombs, invented by NPC Alexander Graham Bell no less, were a useful tool for stunning enemies. A neat mechanic was the ability to kidnap opponents, to effectively use them as a cloaking device by moving around a populated area with your victim in tow, their immediate proximity to you rendering you invisible to other enemies that are loitering the same area. Furthermore, bringing all these stealth skills to Syndicate's excellent black box mission was a constant blast. Returning from Unity, these linear-in-nature missions, whereby our protagonists are tasked with taking down a high-value Templar target, were expanded to greater effect than in Unity via multiple points of infiltration, ally and enemy locations, plus unique takedowns for each assassination target. Their design ensured them as some of the most rewarding missions in any Assassin's Creed game. And while Jacob's brute force approach was seldom unenjoyable, playing these missions as the more calculating Evie, if possible, was the way to go. All in all, Assassin's Creed Syndicate does suffer a negative reputation based upon what came immediately before it, but reassessing on its own merit a decade later reveals an entry in the stealth action series that's well worth revisiting due to an excellently realized setting, likable protagonists, and some of the best stealth mechanics seen in any Assassin's Creed game. Will the return of dual protagonists in the upcoming Assassin's Creed Shadows herald a changing of the seasons for the developer's beleaguered reputation? Well, time will tell, but if Shadows adopts a bespoke, of-the-time approach to its weapons and combat, plus harbors an intriguing relationship between its player characters akin to Syndicate, then the developer stands a good chance of making Shadows successful.
And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.